herself the Martha Stewart of marijuana.
Meet the marijuana mom of Beverly Hills. Why she says vaporizing, eating, and cooking with pot saved her life.
It gave me my life back with my children and my family.
Then surprising revelations from Dame Helen Mirren.
I know that you have a real thing for lucite heels. Helen Mirren in a sex shop. I'm having a hard time picturing it.
Plus,
why didn't I think of that?
Women who turn dreams into reality with incredible inventions.
Can I just say, yum?
From Studio One in New York, it's Katie.
Great to see you. We have a really interesting show in store for all of you today. But before we get started, here's a little blast from the past. Take a look.
These high school boys and girls are having a hop at the local soda fountain. Innocently, they dance. Innocent of a new and deadly menace lurking behind closed doors. Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell.
Wow. Times have changed, right? Well, that was a trailer to the 1936 movie Reefer Madness, and we've gone from fighting the evil weed from hell to a place where marijuana is being used legally in many states and is poised to become a booming and legitimate industry. That's our headline story, and we begin with a California mom who's blazing a trail for the new high society. She calls herself the Martha Stewart of marijuana, and she says that's a good thing. Cannabis, Mary Jane, pot, weed. No matter what you call it, marijuana is becoming mainstream. From Showtime's hit series Weeds, about a suburban California mom who sells marijuana to support her family. Gentlemen, I sell marijuana. To real-life moms making headlines.
Hot mom, the suburban soccer mother accused of running a multi-million-dollar marijuana operation.
48% of Americans say they've tried marijuana at some point in their lives, and the old stereotype of stoners is going up in smoke. Cheryl Shuman is proof that the face of those who partake and those who even sell the drug is changing.
There are basically two kinds of cannabis, medical grade cannabis, sativas and indicas.
She runs the Beverly Hills Cannabis Club, a multi-million-dollar business, and hosts regular parties at her home where she and other moms cook, eat, smoke, and vaporize with marijuana.
Having dinner. I like a little marijuana leaf.
And as weed grows in the suburbs and beyond, so has public approval. A recent poll found that more than half of Americans think marijuana should be legalized. With 18 states and Washington, D.C. already allowing pot for medicinal use, and Colorado and Washington clearing the way for adult recreational use, the drug that was once taboo may be coming to a store near you. So please welcome Cheryl Shuman and her daughter, Amy. Nice to see you both. Thanks for being here. This is so interesting. You've really, Cheryl, made a cottage industry out of cannabis, but it comes from your own experiences with marijuana. Tell me about when you started using marijuana and why.
Sure. I was a corporate woman working in film and television, specializing in PR and product placement. And in 1996, I was going through a really bad divorce and a stressful time. And my psychiatrist had prescribed Prozac and Xanax and a number of pharmaceuticals. And then one day he looked at me and nothing else was working. And he looked at me and he said, Prop 215 just passed. It's legal. And lady, you need to smoke a joint. So
really?
He rolled one up for me and showed me how to do it because I had never even smoked a cigarette. I didn't drink. I'd never done drugs. And within 2 puffs, I was smiling and laughing for the first time. And I would rather have those side effects any day. Then fast forward to 2006, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And I used cannabis as a last resort. And it saved my life. And in fact, I don't smoke cannabis. I vaporize cannabis. It's a healthier alternative.
So you're a true believer. I mean, we don't want to give people false hope that marijuana can cure their cancer, but you feel it had an instrumental role in your recovery.
Agreed. I would never be a person to go out there and claim this is a miracle cure, stop everything you're doing. I don't believe that. I believe that it was a combination of different therapies, and it worked for me.
Tell me how you turned from using marijuana to turning it into a multi-million-dollar business. How did that come about?
Well, I juice the plant. I have cannabis juice every morning, which is actually a non-psychoactive way to use cannabis. It's specifically for tumor growth. And when I decided to use cannabis, I needed a lot of it. So we decided to do our own garden. So my daughter and I, we planned our garden. We planted our garden together right there with my tomatoes and zucchinis and everything else. And so we formed a legal collective because we wanted to do everything legal. And then with the extra that we had, when people found out that I was back in town from the entertainment industry, I started getting calls from all of my friends who are producers, actors, and so forth. And they said, "Oh my God, we heard you have cancer, but we also heard you have a marijuana garden. We want to be a part of it." So,
more importantly, I guess, right?
And so then it was strange. The day I got back, I got a call from a friend of mine who was the executive producer of Wilfred, and he said, "I need your plants for a TV series that we're doing." And that's when I realized, hey, there's a huge opportunity for a business here.
And Amy, how is it for you? Your mom is sort of known as the Martha Stewart of marijuana. Is there any part of you that thinks this is a little strange?
No, absolutely not. My mom is an amazing role model, and I consider her the modern day Pauline Sabin, the woman that overturned alcohol prohibition. And my mom is going to overturn marijuana prohibition, so this is historical. And it's like, I can't believe she's my mom at the same time.
And how big a business is this for you, Cheryl? Because obviously it's been very lucrative.
Well, nationally, they estimate that cannabis will be a legal $47 billion industry by 2016. And for me personally, I make $500 an hour as an expert, but also we just raised $10 million to take the concept of the Beverly Hills Cannabis Club worldwide.
Tell me,
very excited.
What is exactly the Beverly Hills Cannabis Club? I mean, who are the members? What do you guys do? Obviously, I'm assuming you get together and enjoy marijuana. Yeah.
Yes, we love marijuana. No, what happened, and we wanted to make sure that we had a legal garden. So when I had my legal garden, I give parties and I give my cannabis free to my friends, just like you do your tomatoes.
But they are not using it for medicinal purposes, are they?
In California, it's all medicinal.
So these are only people who actually have doctors prescribing marijuana for their maladies, right?
Exactly.
So these aren't just people who want to come over and get stoned with you.
No.
We have a mom here, actually, Cheryl, who is an advocate. Georgia Edson is from Denver, Colorado, and the mother of an 8-year-old boy. And Georgia, you know, I know in Colorado marijuana is legal, as we heard, for recreational in addition to medicinal use. So how did you start using it?
I started using medical marijuana because I'm a runner, and I was diagnosed with horrific bursitis. And my physician said, you're going to be taking high doses of ibuprofen and getting cortisone shots in your hip for as long as you continue to run, and stopping running wasn't an option. And the idea of potentially wearing out the joints because of cortisone shots and continuing to take large doses of ibuprofen wasn't really a good health option for me. And the idea of using a topical infused with cannabis was suggested to me. And I thought, gosh, I'd never even heard of such a thing. And it's literally a lotion or a cream, and you apply it to the infected area. And cannabis is a natural anti-inflammatory. And within 3 months of using only the cannabis-infused topical, I was able to run a half marathon.
Well, I know that you believe that marijuana, as you've told us here today, has healing powers, but are you right? And what are the potential dangers of using marijuana? Dr. Sanjay Gupta is here. He'll answer those questions right after this.
Up next, the controversial debate regarding marijuana. Is it a gateway drug?
This is hypocrisy. It could potentially help people who really need it. The idea that it somehow tricks your brain to now try LSD, now try heroin, now try cocaine. There's just not evidence of that.
That's next.
We're talking about marijuana today and shifting attitudes about whether it should be a crime to use it. 52% of Americans now believe it should, in fact, be legal. We conducted our own online poll at katiecouric.com. We asked if you've ever smoked pot. A lot of stoners are watching me, apparently, because 94% of you said yes. CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, has just finished a year-long investigation on marijuana for an upcoming documentary called Weed, and we're thrilled to have him here today. Welcome, Sanjay. Nice to see you. So, clearly, there is a major shift going on in this country, as we saw from those poll results and from the admission of people saying they had tried pot. Is it possible to use medicinal marijuana and not get high? You know, we heard about the cream form, obviously, for some pain, but how is it usually administered for people who are having medical issues?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, and I should preface by saying, look, you know, I sort of approach this as a neuroscientist. I really wanted to understand how it works in the body and the brain. There's sort of two main chemicals in marijuana. THC,
right,
which is the one that people think of, the psychoactive, get you high, and CBD. CBD is probably the substance that can have significant medical benefit when it comes to things like the pain, seizures, for example, a lot of these things. And you can now create plants, strains of marijuana that are much higher in CBD and much lower in THC. It's not that the THC is gone. It's just that you probably would not get the psychoactive part of this. And I've seen this being used for young people who really have no idea of what to expect. They're taking it as a medicine and not getting the high from it.
We have a clip from your upcoming documentary. Tell us what we're about to see, Sanjay.
Again, I approach this eyes wide open. You're going to meet a young man. He's 19 years old, Chaz Moore, who has a rare condition for which he was trying all sorts of different medications. OxyContin, Valium, very high potency drugs, none of which worked for this condition until he tried marijuana.
All right, let's take a look.
But always have two strips.
Meet 19-year-old Chaz Moore. He uses many different strains of marijuana to treat his rare disorder of the diaphragm.
My abs will lock up.
That's why he's talking this way, almost speaking in hiccups, like he can't catch his breath. It's called myoclonus diaphragmatic flutter.
This fluttering here, it's annoying, but it becomes painful pretty quickly, I imagine.
Yeah, after 15, 20 minutes, this is where I can start to really feel it.
He's about to show me how the marijuana works for him. He's been convulsing now for 7 minutes.
How quickly do you expect this to work?
Within the first 5 minutes. And I'm done.
That's it.
That's it.
It was actually less than a minute.
Depending on the attack in the day, it'll work within the first couple hits.
Hear how his voice is completely different. That attack lasted 8 minutes.
Wow, that's remarkable. It was like that, wasn't it?
It's just so striking to me that doctors are so willing to give all those other drugs, whereas this could potentially provide an effective and safer option.
Having said that, he's 19 years old, and of course, as a scientist or surgeon, you know that his brain is still developing.
Yeah.
Is there any evidence that marijuana does affect a still developing brain?
I think there is. And I think you have to think about people whose brains are still developing separately than those whose brains have developed. And brain development doesn't immediately stop at age 18. It usually goes into your mid-20s, you know. So kids, or again, people with still developing brains, they should be put in a different category.
It's just tough, though, because I feel like we're sending out a lot of mixed messages here, and it's sort of hard for people to kind of really synthesize all this and then act accordingly, don't you think, a little bit?
I do, but look, again, I can't get my arms around this idea that we prescribe morphine, we prescribe OxyContin, we prescribe Dilaudid. I've researched this so much. Someone dies of an accidental prescription drug overdose in this country every 19 minutes. Every 19 minutes. And those are legitimate legal medications which are being prescribed right now. And yet marijuana, which, again, I don't have a huge dog in this race, but the point is that is a legitimate medication. It had been for 100 years, became demonized, and now we see a story like Chaz. He could not function without it. His life would be ruined. And I meet countless people like that. We don't see this data because we can't study it. It's been illegal.
And Sanjay, we asked the FDA for their position on marijuana, and this is what they gave us in a statement. Marijuana is listed in Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act, the most restrictive schedule. Marijuana has a high potential for abuse, has no currently accepted medical use and treatment in the United States, and has a lack of accepted safety for use under medical supervision. Furthermore, there is currently sound evidence that smoked marijuana is harmful. So,
There you go.
Hello, that is completely counter to everything that we've been hearing here today.
It's saying it has no medicinal benefit. There have been at least 100 studies that have shown its medicinal benefit. They say it has a high abuse potential. It is far less addictive than drugs that are scheduled lower than that. This is hypocrisy. And again, I think it riles people up in part in the medical community because it could potentially help people who really need it. And it's not being offered. It's not in this country.
Let me ask you if it's a gateway drug, because we often hear that, you smoke pot, then you're more likely to abuse even more dangerous substances. What did you find out about that?
The idea that it somehow tricks your brain or then creates a motivation in your brain to now try LSD, now try heroin, now try cocaine, something else. There's just not evidence of that. And, I've asked when I've interviewed people, including people at the National Institute on Drug Abuse, to show me the evidence on that. All of a sudden, it's woefully lacking.
So what is the responsible public policy that will help kind of, manage this drug in the best possible way?
In my mind, it has to be a federal policy. You meet patients like Chaz, he can't leave the state of Colorado because if he leaves, he no longer has a potentially life-saving medicine. That should not happen to people. I mean, that's ridiculous in 2013 that's the situation that we're now in. So I think the FDA has to look at the same studies that were available to me, available to anybody who wants to find this stuff, and determine whether or not this is still sound drug policy for the sake of medicinal marijuana at least.
You have 3 girls now, right?
I do, yes.
And your oldest is how old now?
She's 8 years old.
So when your oldest daughter turns 21 and says, "Dad, let's get high," would you be okay with that?
It's one of these things. I think I put it in the same category as alcohol or anything else like that. And my daughter's probably going to watch your show and she's going to hold me to this someday.
Luckily, you're 18 years away from this now, Sanjay,
She'll
right?
find it. Yeah. But it's a fair question. But I think I cannot find the harm in it, much in that I would have to share a drink with her.
All right. Well, it's really fascinating, Sanjay. Great to see you. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you've learned.
Thank you.
You need to educate people, I think.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sanjay. And by the way, you can catch Sanjay's documentary, Weed, on CNN August 11th at 8 o'clock p.m.